All right, welcome back to the channel. On today's episode, we're going to be doing a full-blown installation of our Coxreels Ezcoil air compressor hose reel and our full air compressor setup. It's going to cover every fitting, how we did it, why we did it. It's quite lengthy and quite detailed. If you just want to see a quick product overview talking about the setup, the hose reels we're using, we have the Coxreels Ezcoil hose reel. We also have the Amazon version, which is much more affordable, and they're both pretty cool. If you want to see that video, it's much shorter. Just click the link I put up here on the side, or down in the description, I'll put a link to that video too. But if you're here to see the entire install, fitting for fitting through the whole process, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Yeah. You're probably already thinking, man, what now, Jeremy? Well, I'm gonna tell you, it's the air compressor setup that I've had for a while. It's just been parked in the corner of the garage, and I only use it when I absolutely have to. I wanna kit it out with some super fun, high-end, easy-to-use stuff so that I'm more likely to use it on a routine basis. So what do we have here? Some of the new stuff we got is this Coxreels Ezcoil reel. The big idea behind this one is when you let it go to retract, it just slowly creeps across and gets back up inside the reel. Super safe. You don't have to worry about it nicking the paint, ripping out people's teeth, or anything crazy like that. The old one we have is the Amazon Special, and I'll tell you what, this thing has been around with me for about 10 years. It's worked awesome, and it still looks brand new. The hose has got some wear and tear on it, but the reel itself is killer. The only difference is it's much smaller, much lighter gauge. I consider this residential, professional. But with that being said, we're gonna put a hose on it, put it back in action on the side of the garage where I work on my mountain bikes, dirt bikes, and all that good stuff. So we got some really nice hoses. We got all the equipment we need to do this. And later on, by the way, I'm gonna do a comparison what it's like to use a super nice top of the line everything versus a much more economical model, and we'll see what the real difference is. And different applications and different budgets will dictate which way you'd like to go. We got all different grades of hoses we're going to try out, but without any further delay, we need to get this compressor cleaned up. It's been sitting in the corner of the garage for a while, so we'll open it up, inspect it, clean it out, get it in position, start putting the pipe, get the reels hung, and get this job done. All right. Yeah. So I got this compressor just sitting in the corner of my garage collecting dirt. I need to use it. What am I going to do? Oh man, look at that now. That is beautiful. Bead maker paint protectant. We'll put that on anything. Alright, it's time to get to work. So I found this really neat extension for our moisture release valve that goes on the bottom of the tank. It's just got to thread it on. Man, it's really going to make using it a lot easier. Alright, so we do want it to stick out of the front. This is actually the back of the compressor, so I think we'll do one more turn. Now we'll take off the inspection port on the side of the tank. I'm going to put some silicone lubricant on the O-ring so that it doesn't bind up when I'm tightening it down. The new one has a 1/2-inch female national pipe thread adapter on it. That's where we're going to screw our 90-degree elbow on for our jumper hose. Next we'll put on our 90-degree 1/2-inch brass elbow. We'll aim it towards the back. That's where we want our jumper hose to go. And now we'll add on our 1/2-inch air compressor hose. It also has 1/2-inch national pipe thread fittings on it. All right, now we just get it in position where it's gonna live. Now we'll mount the bracket for the air regulator valve. I'm using a 2-inch lag bolt so it's firmly seated into the stud. We'll put a level on it, make sure it's nice and level, then we'll screw it down tight. Alright, that's looking good. After threading the 1/2-inch air compressor hose to the air pressure regulator, we'll go ahead and mount it securely to the mount. Now it's time to run our copper air line. We'll make the cuts, clean the pipe ends, brush out the fittings, add our flux, dry fit the joint. Now it's time to do our soldering. Add the heat to the middle of the joint, being careful not to overheat the joint. Once it's hot enough to melt the solder, go ahead and start laying it on. That'll draw the solder in towards the heat. It's time to mount our pipe hangers and then secure the pipe. All right, so that went together super good. So let's take a quick look at what we did. 90-degree brass elbow, 1/2-inch air compressor hose, air regulator to our copper pipe. All of our fittings are in place. We're ready to go. So far, so good. I did realize after I ran all the plumbing that, man, I was like, man, I really want everything, all the accent stuff in the garage to be black. All the trim pieces, doors, and this overhead shelving that I store all my, you know, life stuff up there. So I wanted those all black, and I ended up having to paint that, which no big deal. It's looking awesome. Here was my thought on this. After I ran the piping up, so it comes up to the first NPT 1/2-inch pipe fitting, and this is gonna have a small jumper hose that comes down and supports the Cox reel. I put that 2x6 blocking. Man, let me tell you, that thing is super strong. It's not going anywhere. And it's the width, the perfect width for mounting the reel on. So we'll have the jumper hose to the Cox reel here. We're gonna continue on down on the other end. I got another 1/2-inch fitting down there that's gonna be where we mount the smaller Amazon style reel that's gonna service my bikes on the other side of the garage. Now all this plumbing has a downhill slope to it, and all these fittings are rotated up slightly, and the jumper hose will go up as well. So when all the any water that condensates as it goes down and the moisture forms, it'll all run downhill and run downhill all the way to the pressure regulator, which has a small water bleed valve on the bottom. That's where we'll take care of any water buildup that we get. And also we do have the bleed valve on the bottom of the tank that we installed as well. So we shouldn't have any problems with water. I don't plan on having 4 or 5 guys in here running air tools 8-10 hours a day. So I'm not overly concerned about the water situation. So without any more delay, let's go ahead and get the hose reels up here. We'll get our jumpers built, get them mounted, and get them all set up. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. All right, so this is where being a one-man band is kind of gets challenging. All right, so this thing is heavy as all hell. I'm gonna hold it up there. I'll tell you what, this thing's probably like, I don't know, at least 50, 75 pounds. This is a 2-person job, but I'll tell you what, I don't have 2 people. I gotta get this done by myself. There we go, so we got one marked. And that's usually what I do. I'll get one marked, get a hole started, get a screw in. That way I can put one screw in and mark the rest and just do it that way. You gotta do what you gotta do, man. All right, like everything else, we want to pre-drill. We don't want to be splitting the wood, and we want the most integrity we can get out of it. Want it just enough so that it'll grab that base mount. All right, now that we got that one in, it's easy to get that next one. Now this one I want perfect. There we go. All right, that thing is on there. I'll tell you what, if there's an earthquake, this will be the last thing hanging. All right, so after taking a look at it, when I pull the hose out, it looks like it's gonna have to go around a 90-degree corner here. This is obviously made to be put up on a high ceiling. I got it down kind of low. So I'm gonna rotate this up so as we pull it out, it just comes off the reel perfectly straight. I think that's going to work better for my shop. So let's go ahead and get that done. I'll tell you what, the best part about doing this all myself is I do it exactly how I want to do it. I don't have anybody jumping in, trying to tell me the best way to do it. There we go. Now when we pull it off, it's going to come straight off the reel perfectly. It'll hang down right in front. It's going to be dope. All right, so this hose came with a 1/4-inch fitting on it. We need to outfit it with a 3/8 barb fitting, so I'm going to go ahead and try this. I haven't done this before, but it seems pretty straightforward. We'll just start by cutting the hose. We have our double-sided crimps, and I decided to go big and get the right tool for the job, the PREVOST crimpers. We'll put that on first. That's all the way down. Just leave a small little piece there. I just read some reviews where people were just bending the ones on Amazon and couldn't even get a solid crimp without it bending. So I figured, man, I'll just get the right stuff. I can tell you right now, that's not going anywhere, guys. Look at that. I just hope it didn't pinch too much and hurt the hose, but I doubt it. All right, we'll start by screwing this bad boy in. One more. Quarter. There we go. Now, you don't want to be breaking things off, but I don't feel like putting this whole thing together and having it leak either.
Now it's time to make the bend to the swivel fitting. We want it to be nice, smooth, easy bend because it's going to stay like this for many years. Next we'll slide the anti-chafing spring into position. This will prevent the hose from scratching against the metal over the years. And then we'll secure the hose retention clips down to hold that hose in place.
So we want to make sure our spring is protecting it as it goes through this edge here. We don't want any chafing going on. All right, snug but not crazy. Just gotta have patience. You're up here and your arms are on fire. You've been at this for 10 hours. All right, so we got a nice, reasonable bend. The spring is definitely guarding it from any chafing, and it runs nicely into the hose reel. It looks good. All right, let's see how it does. Now, the first time I'm gonna help it so that it gets wound up sensibly. All right, so now that we got it wound in, the first time I wanted to get it to lay decent so any memory that builds into the hose is a good one. And so far, so good. All right, let's get the bump stop on it and keep moving. All right, now for another one of my favorite items, the PREVOST. Super safety disconnect. Man, this thing's pretty nice. I'm gonna put that on.
We'll put Teflon pipe thread tape on all of our threaded fittings.
Spray a little dish soap in there to make it slide.
Without the dish soap with water, man, it just won't slide on that rubber hose. It's just so hard to get on. Now we'll screw our air tool quick disconnect on. And if you don't have a large enough box wrench, be careful not to shred this thing to bits with those channel locks.
Good.
The soap is so slippery I had to use some dry rags to help me get some purchase on this.
There we go. Pretty nice right there, man. And if you're a detailer, you can appreciate this guy. Ooh, that's nice. All right, it's time to put the jumper on. I kind of learned doing this crimp that you're better off doing the crimps after, as long as you can get the tool in there. So I feel like I can get the tool on this one, so I'm gonna go ahead and tighten it down first. I'm gonna try to find that nice bend to get there. It's actually pretty good. I'm liking it.
This is when I'm starting to appreciate the layout work that I did in advance.
Man, I gotta say, that's pretty sweet. That's a nice little jumper there. Out of the way, nothing touches it on the shelf up there. That's awesome. Let's get it crimped up. That's a good crimp, that's not going anywhere. Just wanna make sure I got the right amount there.
When I first started the project, I was kind of concerned about all these crimps, but I gotta say, man, they're easy to do and they turn out great.
That's another great crimp. It really works nice.
Man, I gotta say, I'm really happy with the way that turned out. Matches the other reels perfect. Super solid installation. It looks awesome. Stoked to have it in the garage.
All right, so after looking at this, I realized that as much as I would like to have the jumper hose on the outside so that the inside's nice and clean, the reel itself just doesn't wind that way. So I gotta move it over to the inside and have the jumper hose in here. So this is the first little snag we hit. Gonna be easy fix. I have a coupling already right here because it's longer than a 10-foot length of pipe. So I'm just gonna cut a section out, move the 1/2-inch adapter over to here, and we should be all good. But just something to consider when you do your layout with your reel. Make sure that if you have 2 of them or wherever you put it, that the jumper hose is where you want it.
Now we'll do our copper work. Cut the pipe, sand the ends, flux.
And we want to make sure when we solder this that we got it pointing up so that the water will run downhill and won't end up, it'll have a harder time coming up in the fitting. Ideally, we would want to run it vertical because water definitely wouldn't go up there. But again, I'm not going to have the kind of water issues that a full-blown automotive shop would have. So from running the tools all day long. So I'm just going to go on a slight upward incline because I don't want the jumper hose sticking up inside the shelving area where I store all my stuff. So it's kind of important to have it just right. Make sure you get the back of the joint too. And it's always important to get a wet rag and wipe that joint off. Get all that flux off so that it's nice and clean looking. Now we'll move our hanger over. Our run has been at 3 inches. There we go, all done. All right, so after muscling around the last one, I feel like I took a few measurements. I'm gonna try to do things a little easier this time, now that we know how it's gonna go. So we know it's gonna be 5.5 inches to our first hole. And that'll put us 1.5 inches off the wall, just like our other reel. Even though this one's smaller, I want it as close to the wall as I can get, because when I'm walking around, I don't wanna be busting my head on it or anything. All right, and for the fun part, you know, the one-man band is nice until you gotta hold this heavy thing up. And there it goes, yeah. I don't want these too tight because I need to line those other holes up. I mean, they're pretty close, but they're not perfect. And this time I'm gonna try an actual socket to see if that helps. I mean, I wasn't sure if I could fit it in there, and the wrench isn't the end of the world. Just kind of get it kind of snug until we get all 4 bolts in. Now here's where I wasn't sure if a ratchet would work, so. I can barely get my hand in there. That sure helps. Just want that razor square. There it is. This is a quick once over. I don't want to hulk it out and destroy anything, but I don't want this thing shaking loose later either. Again, that thing is super solid. And I'm gonna rotate this up again, just like the other one. All right, so that's all set up now, super strong, and got the feed right where we want it, so it's time to start putting the jumper hose on and the regular hose, and let's get this thing finished up. All right, before we get too carried away on this one, I want to do a dry fit on that hose to see how it's going to lay in there. I'd say on about an angle like that looks pretty good. Somewhere around there. Tiny bit more. Yeah, something like that. That looks awesome. Yeah. All right, so now we'll feed the hose through. Try to find an angle that works good with that. That looks good. Yeah, that's nice. All right, I don't want to tighten anything up too much just yet. Let's get the spring. Go ahead and wind it up. And again, the first time we'll kind of help it out a little bit so it gets a good memory. And this hose is like really sticky right now too. So once I drag it across the shop floor a bunch of times, get dirty and slippery and everything else. There we go. All right, now we put the jumper hose on. Feel like that's good. So make sure you put your pinch clamps on there, because once you put the hose onto the barb fitting, it's not coming off without cutting it. Ask me how I know. All right, there's one. Let's see a little. Keep that upward trajectory going for the water. Hose is surprisingly hard to cut. I got a reasonable straight cut on that, so we're happy. All right, now we're going to pinch all three of our new connections. That's solid. And it really helps when you're working with these rubber products to, I just have a sprayer full of dish soap. Stuff will dry over time. Just helps us really get it to slide on properly. I mean, without it, it would just be a nightmare. All right. And we'll hit it good with this. There we go. That's a nice clean connection there. Perfect. All right, we got one last crimp that I almost forgot. I'm sure I would have found out when it started leaking. There we go. All right. Here's a little tip for people that like copper. Little CLR. Takes a little bit of elbow grease, but Just gets all that tarnish off really easy.
Here's a look at the completed install. Man, it came together nice. I'm super happy with it.
All right, so that install went really good. I'm really happy with it. It was a lot of work, but it was rewarding work because now we're super happy with the setup. But here's the moment we've been waiting for. Let's fire up the compressor and see if there's any leaks, because we definitely don't want any leaks. All right, so here it goes. All right, so we'll walk around and take a look at all the fittings. I'm gonna do if this was a pressure test that would really matter, like water or something to be leaking in the house, man, I would go around and be super careful that this thing isn't leaking. But since it's just an air system in our garage, I'm gonna do two methods. Once, I'm gonna inspect the fittings. Normally I would spray soapy water on it, but I don't want that mess. If it's not hissing, leaking, or the second method is going to be to look at the gauge in about 10 or 15 minutes. If it'll be parked at exactly what I set it at after 15 minutes, that's more than enough because I'm actually going to be using this stuff. So let's start by taking a look at the fittings. And at first hand, these high quality crimp fittings and brass fittings and copper fittings, there's just no way they're going to be leaking, but you never know. We got to check. So far so good. Even the little incredible hawk reel over here is looking pretty sweet. All right, so it's been about 30 minutes, and I'll tell you what, it's still parked on 140, exactly where it was when I first pumped it up. That's a good sign, because the last thing we want to do is go around to all of our fittings, and it's hissing like a bag of rattlesnakes. Man, that would just mean we'd have to come back, cut into the pipe, redo a bunch of stuff. We don't want to do that. So my methodology is I try my hardest to do it right the first time, because going back and doing it is sometimes 3 times the work. So we definitely don't want to be doing that. So we're happy that there's no leaks and everything's functioning perfectly. All right, this thing looks sick, man. Really, really commercial feeling. Even this little gun, I mean, these fittings work so good. The gun just fits unbelievable in your hand. Look at that, really high quality. And my favorite part about these fittings, you press it, it disconnects, then you can remove it. So you don't have that going on, which is actually really cool. It's a safety thing, and then to put it together, bam, just like that. So again, that simple. All right, so this thing, look how slow that goes in. I gotta say, you don't have to worry about that thing kicking up and hitting your car or knocking your teeth out or anything else, because it's gonna reel in super slow. Some of the things I'm happy about, man, I think the copper turned out pretty nice. Like I've done some plumbing over the years, so I'm not a plumber, but I mean, I've done plenty of copper work and such. And I have to say, man, there's something about this that looks kind of cool, but it also really doesn't match the garage. Why don't you leave a comment down below? I can obviously paint this. What do you think? You like it shiny copper with that bling factor, or do you like it painted? I mean, I could paint it black. I could paint it gray down the bottom and black across the top, so it's nice and concealed. And that's still up in the air what I'm going to do with that. Some other things that stand out right off the bat is just a custom fit of the jumper hose here. And for those of you that are wondering why I did this, the jumper hose is necessary because when I'm moving the compressor around, I don't want it yanking all my piping everywhere. So it's kind of a necessary evil here, and it turned out nice. It looks good. Okay, so let's talk about this air release valve on the bottom of the tank that's made to drain the water out. I can tell you right now, I can't believe that I waited so many years to get this. What a cool solution. No more reaching underneath. You just got to be careful with 150 PSI on a flexible hose. If we crank this valve all the way open, it's going to take off. So I like to crack it open nice and slow and make sure that it's not going to go anywhere. But it's going to get loud, so I'll turn it off when I do this. And it sticks out from the bottom. In the past, I used to have to reach under there and do it and play with it. And I'll be honest, what it ended up making me do is just not do it. And then it ends up rusting out the tank. That's no good. So this is a nice, easy way to get the moisture out of the tank. We have another bleed valve here on the bottom of the pressure regulator. And again, this whole system runs downhill all the way to here. And before it goes to the reels, it does take an uphill run. So water will tend to go down as it cools and run down into the pressure regulator where I can bleed it off right there. So we got the water situation under control for those of you that are fanatics about making sure that the water doesn't get into our tools. But more importantly for me, again, I'm not running like 5 guys in here running polishers all day and air tools. So yes, when you're running that kind of quantity of air and you get the cooling in the line and then you get the water forming, and then you got to have a system in place to deal with the water. But for our purposes, I feel like we got it nipped. I also, on my compressor, I ran a dedicated 20 amp circuit to it. This is only a 15 amp compressor. So my thought was this: if I do get a different compressor that needs a 20 amp circuit, I got it. I also have a 220 volt circuit here. So this was to run my welder. I just kept it in place, and I thought, you know what, if I do upgrade this compressor at a later date, pretty much all I have to do is screw my jumper into it, maybe change the outlet to match the compressor, and bam, I'm going with that too. So again, we always like to future-proof everything we do in the garage so that we can upgrade later without having to tear the walls open and call an electrician. If you have any questions about anything I've done here, that's one of my favorite parts about this channel is I do the things in the garage that I like to do, and I try to help other people when they have questions because they're trying to do their garage. Man, I enjoy answering them. So if you have any questions, leave them below and I'll try to help you out the best I can. Now there was a lot of fittings, a lot of thought went into this system. So I can take a lot of the pressure off by going ahead and putting links down in the bottom, and you can click on them and do what you want. Obviously, if you buy stuff from the links, it does support the channel, and I appreciate that. But even if you just want to have a look so that you can get your parts list together without wondering, is this the right barb fitting? Is this the right 3/8 90-degree nipple? So a lot of that matters. You come, you get all the wrong parts, and then nothing fits, and then you're bummed out. So to make your install go easy, it's kind of a good idea to have all the right stuff. And this is all good quality stuff too. I'm not taking any shortcuts on anything I'm doing in this garage from this point on. I did do the Amazon hose reel that I had in the past, and I put a really nice hose on it and really nice fittings and a really nice air blow tool and everything else. Everything but the reel is super high end. So I wanted to put forth a product for people that don't want to spend the money on this, to say, hey, you can still have a cool hose reel with the user experience being, you know, very professional level without blowing all the money on the big time reel. So, and maybe you might start out with the cheap reel and come back and hit the big one later. That's up to you. I had that one for about 10 years and I thought, why not use it? A second reel would be kind of cool in the garage. One runs down one side of the car, one runs down the other. So it helps out to have a, you know, more is sometimes just more, but in this case, it helps out. All right, so if you like these kind of videos and you want to see more like them, go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos. We still have plenty more neat stuff. Obviously, I'm a Coxreels fan, so we have every single one that I know of. Well, there's other ones, but they don't pertain to what I'm doing. But also hit that like button. That tells YouTube that, man, you enjoyed the video, and it'll recommend it to other people so that they can see our video too. And that's important to us. We sure like our fans. We like our subscribers. And again, leave any comments, any suggestions, any tips, tricks that help other people. They sure enjoy that. And with that being said, another project down the hatch, and we'll see you on the next one. Yeah.